Hey, Cleared Job Seekers. We're working hard this summer to record episodes with more great guests from the Cleared community. To make sure we continue to bring you the best content possible, we'll be releasing new episodes every other week this summer. By the start of September, we'll be back to our usual weekly schedule. Enjoy the show!
One of the new buzzwords for 2025 is platform engineer. It's not new, but I think what it has encompassed is relatively new. It seems to be the new code word for DevOps, right? So it's software, it's DevOps, it's security, it's networking, it's systems. And we're finding that the government is using that labor category to encompass a lot of different opportunities. So keep an eye out for that one for sure. And it's a good place to be right now.
Welcome to Security Cleared Jobs, Who's Hiring and How, the podcast for cleared professionals looking for new opportunities and career advice. We go behind the scenes with recruiters and hiring managers from leading cleared employers to uncover the information you need to make a smart career move. Get ready for insights from this week's guest and your hosts, Kathleen Smith and Rachel Bozeman.
Well, hello there, amazing listeners. It's Rachel. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. We've got a super fun episode with some show first, spoiler alert, out there. But first, let me welcome the one and only Bob Wheeler, our special co-host for today. Bob, how in the heck are you doing, my friend?
Hey, Rachel, I'm doing terrific. I love getting a chance to be a occasional pop-in guest host, and I'm excited to be here today. Since we're here, who are we talking to? Tell me what we got going on today.
You're just full of great questions, Bob. Well, let me tell you who we're talking to today. It is Brett Willie, the Director of Recruiting at Clarity Innovations. Brett, it is so great to have you with us today.
I really appreciate you guys having me. It's nice to meet both of you.
Well, I did a spoiler alert at the beginning, so let me tell you what it is. This is a first for us on the show. And let me make sure I'm stating this correctly, Brett. But I understand that you were inspired by a TV show host to major in kinesiology, and then you went into recruiting. So how in the world, tell us about this career path, TV show, kinesiology, recruiting, tell us more.
So as you can tell, not a whole lot of overlap between those two things necessarily. As I always tell people, I think it's important to figure out what you don't want to do. That way you know what you do want to do. So when I started at Maryland, I actually went into microbiology. So a little bit more advanced, I guess, than kinesiology. It's a specific school, et cetera. But I was spending, 6 to 10 hours a week in labs, right? Wearing a white coat. And it was very, stick to yourself kind of environment. And obviously, as someone that has created a career in sales and recruiting, that wasn't the environment for me. So when I started looking for my first opportunity, I knew that sales was probably going to be the best alignment for me. And I started applying to some of those roles and got my first recruiting job out of college. Instead of going the account management role, I ended up staying the recruiting route, and it's kind of brought me to where I am today.
That's a great story, Brett. So you've obviously had some growth in your life over the years, but Clarity is also having some growth. Just last year, you guys merged with a Chameleon Consulting. So you got like 3 different sectors now, 700 employees. Kind of break it down. What are those 3 sectors like? What is it that Clarity has going on?
Yeah, for sure. And for context, I was about employee 50 when I started at Clarity. So to see us up to this 700 number has definitely been quite the experience. But to your point, we have 3 sectors that we traditionally focus on. So by and large, our largest division is our DoD sector, right? So military departments. And we've kind of split that in with the partnership with Chameleon Consulting. We split that into 2 different verticals, systems and data, and then cyber dominance. The next is the traditional intel community, right? The 3-letter agencies in Virginia, up here at Fort Meade, and then more of the federal agencies or the kind of commercial oriented divisions. So like the VA, I think would be a great example of maybe a customer that might fall into that. So that's where we're at today, and looking to grow those 3 up and see what the next step is.
Yeah, you said grow things even more. I know you're trying to get another 300. You're trying to push to the 1,000 employee mark pretty soon. Is that the goal? Is that a short-term goal, long-term goal? How does that work out?
Yeah, so it's a very lofty goal, right? I think, when you hear a company of 600 and trying to add, about half their workforce in a year, you have to have the infrastructure for that. And so that is our goal. We have a strong business development team. We have a very good recruiting team, and we're tracking for this goal, about halfway through the year now. So we're excited to see how it comes to an end, but we are very hopeful that 300 will be that number.
That's awesome. I love a good recruiting story there. So with a good recruiting story comes the roles in which you're trying to recruit. So tell us a little bit more about what kind of security cleared positions are you currently hiring for? And are there particular skill sets that you're generally seeking?
Yeah, for sure. For us, it falls into a couple key categories, right? That kind of encompass a lot of different skill sets. When you break it down, you can look something at software engineering, right? But we do everything from embedded to cloud development. So hardware to AWS services. Security engineering obviously encompasses a lot of different skill sets in the ISI, ISM, ISO, DevSecOps kind of community. We do data engineering, cyber operations, solutions architecture, platform engineering, product and program management, and then really design thinking. So more of the UI, UX oriented type roles.
So some pretty incredible opportunities. And we've got a lot of great listeners out there. But you know what they want to know, Brett? It's coming. Where are the positions located?
Yep. So Clarity itself is probably defined as a remote first company, right? We love to open those opportunities to our employees. But as anyone who's listening knows, a lot of where those positions are located is predicated on the customer and where that contract is. What I can say is that we have employees across the United States and even Okonos in Germany, South Korea, et cetera. But if you're looking from a central hub perspective, I would say we primarily operate out of the Virginia, Maryland area. And then we have another significant portion of our contract base over in Tampa, Florida.
All right. You mentioned you do a little bit of everything. You got different sectors. You also do a lot of everything as far as clearances go. I mean, this is a ClearedJobs.Net podcast, so we're going to talk about clearances. A lot of companies tend to pigeonhole themselves into low level or high level, but you guys do what? Everything from clearable all the way up to the polygraph. Is that right? You're a pretty broad scope for your clearance levels?
Yeah, and that's very intentional, right? I think COVID really changed the game for the DoD sector. A lot of people kind of got that taste of that remote work-life balance, right? And so when we looked at that, we said we want to have that culture embedded into this company, right? Because there is sometimes burnout when you have to go on site every day and put your phone down and you can't talk to anyone. And, it's just a different type of role. So that's why we set it up the way we did, where, you could have no clearance all the way up to a full scope polygraph and kind of everything in between, depending on which contract you want to support. But the infrastructure gives our employee base the ability to move internally without having to go externally for other opportunities that might offer those things.
Very cool. So I'm sorry, it's the recruiter in me. I can't let it go yet quite, Brett. So if you don't mind answering one more question for me about these 300 folks that you're looking to add into your organization of those roles. And I know you shared kind of the span of the different titles that are there, but what are those top hiring priorities? And have they changed as you're kind of pivoting and now continuing to add to your workforce?
Yeah, so it's more of the same in the DoD space, right? Like software engineering, data science, cybersecurity. I don't think that will ever go out of style in a sector that's based on those things, right? On technology and on protection and everything else. I've had this conversation earlier this year with some of our engineers. I think one of the new buzzwords for 2025 is platform engineer. It's not new, but I think what it has encompassed is relatively new. It seems to be the new code word for DevOps, right? So it's software, it's DevOps, it's security, it's networking, it's systems. And we're finding that the government is using that labor category to encompass a lot of different opportunities. So keep an eye out for that one for sure. And it's a good place to be right now.
You heard it here first, friends.
Here we go. So we've talked about jobs and clearances and things like that. But I mean, as a recruiter, Brett, you want people who get hired, come to a company and stay at that company because they like it. So you've got a culture there at Clarity. And it sounds like it's a fairly intentional way of putting it together. You want givers, not takers. What does that mean at Clarity?
What that means to us is we want people that naturally think about how they can contribute to the success of those around them, not just themselves, right? We live in a pretty, for lack of a better term, transactional community, right? Where there's labor categories and things have to fit. And it's a little bit individualistic, right? You can't go in and talk about what you're doing with your colleagues because, maybe they don't have the same clearance as you. we kind of look to change the narrative around that and provide a culture of people that are collaborative and passionate about the same things. So, really when I look at that, we are intentional about building a culture where people help each other win. And then by proxy, the company is winning as well.
So I'm going to dig a little deeper into culture because it's also a favorite topic here. So what's something that you're super proud of the culture there, or something that stands out that kind of differentiates Clarity?
Yeah, I think we have a large level of transparency. And that starts from what I would say from the top down, although that's not really how we view leadership at the company, but transparency to a fault, right? We still have a small company feel with more of a large business infrastructure. And I think that was really important to our employees and ownership, that we try to maintain that as much as possible, because no one likes to feel like a cog in a wheel. And the small businesses have a history of not making it that way.
Absolutely. Nobody wants to be a number. So something else I know that y'all do incredibly well, and something else to add to the culture and the goodness that is Clarity, is that you offer skill bridge opportunities for those transitioning military. So has it been as successful as I believe it to be there at Clarity?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a large part of our culture for quite some time. A lot of the leadership here and the ownership at Clarity is former military. It's embedded in everything we do. And that's kind of another reason why we set up our sectors, because we viewed it as the whole life cycle of military, not just active, but off duty as well, right? So SkillBridge is a massive part of that. We've been doing it successfully for years. We're very in tune with the changes and the expectations that program has developed. And, we are still seeing a large quantity of success there. And we're excited with, our expansion to be able to grow that division as well.
That's a great tips and stories there, Brett. You talk about helping other people win, and you got the military thing with the veterans. I was a veteran myself. We're always have a history of trying to help people to succeed as well. If we look at it just in a big picture, you've been a recruiter for a while. Do you have any just general tips for job seekers with a security clearance? Have you seen things that folks could be doing a little bit better, or some good things that can help them be just a good job seeker in general, regardless of their skill set?
Yeah, for sure. One term that I like to use is unapologetic transparency with your recruiter. And I know that's an interesting phrase, right? But what it means is we want to hire the best talent at Clarity. And I have a feeling other companies are aligned to that mentality, right? What happens is candidates sometimes like to play things close to the chest because they don't want to give up their pieces in fear of that us as a company or another company will take advantage of that. I think in our space, information is power. And also in some cases, it's helping you to not be double submitted to an opportunity where then you're discounted for it, right? So there's other things at the government level that can happen that really need that transparency. The unapologetic portion is you're a human being and you have to do what's right for you and your family. You should never feel bad about exploring your options. But I've always said that, we are going to do right by our candidates. And as part of our culture, but also our preference would be, that they do right by us as well, right? Because it's a two-way street.
Those are great tips. Thanks.
Yeah, I love that word too. Unapologetically transparent. That's fantastic. So a lot of our listeners are out there and maybe they are exploring some of those better for them opportunities that are out there. And we give a lot of advice on things to do in the interview process or in the selection process. But something maybe that we don't focus on is kind of how it might feel from the recruiter perspective and things that candidates can do that might just make that recruiter a little uncomfortable. So I understand you might have some tips around this on things that maybe can be avoided so that your recruiter also feels very good about the interaction and doesn't walk away feeling like, oh, well, that was strange.
I think what's important for everyone to remember is that behind every job is a human element, right? And recruiting is no different. And so the treatment of your recruiter is kind of a testament to how you're going to be as an employee when you come in. The other thing is that we are not a butts and seats company. And so we do a lot of hiring after the first conversations. If you can't be transparent or you're making things extremely difficult, lack of communication, disrespectful, etc., we might not be as tempted to reach back and revisit that hiring process after something like that. So especially in a world that is digital, And, we are all, mostly for the part of those calls and those meetings remote, remember that there's a human being on the other side, and they do want what's best for you.
Great tip.
Yeah. And Brett, you would be that human being on the other side a lot of times, and you're a great recruiter. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking to you today, to be quite honest with you. Let's put you on the spot and let you brag a little bit. Has there been anything recently? You ever run into one of those things where you're like, you know what? That was really good. I'm really happy that we placed this person. Do you have kind of a success story, kind of just makes you feel good about your job or what you're doing?
Yeah. So with this integration, I've been a lot more on the operations side and kind of strategy and building out processes as we move forward. As anyone who can tell you that has been through an integration, that can be pretty scary, especially for, two teams combining to bring, one large recruiting team. There is a different in tactics, there's a different in approach, et cetera. And so it's cliche, but every hire that we've had since January this year feels like a massive win, because it's a testament that we've made the right decisions to get our processes and our culture correct and aligned, and that we have the right people in place to make a difference at Clarity.
So now that we've got the team or the listeners very excited and they want to know more about the organization, how in the world can they get in touch with you and your team?
One, hopefully, if we have any contact information from me from this, feel free to reach out to me directly via email. We also have the Clarity Innovations webpage that you can go to. Our careers and our opportunities are all posted there. We also have a staffing distro and I can provide that information to you all as well. So if you want to reach out, one of those three places is a great way to start. LinkedIn also works, as we are very active on there.
Well, Brett, it was an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for spending a little time with us. Thanks for sharing more about Clarity with our listeners. Thanks so much. Till next time.
I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you so much.
Well, that was fun. And it was so fun to learn from Brett and all of his refreshing insights. I really enjoyed his phrase, unapologetic transparency. I think it's something that gets so lost in recruiting nowadays. And it's just about making sure that at all costs, it's about being transparent. It's about being clear and making sure that really leads the conversation. I don't know. What about you, Bob? What did you find interesting about the conversation today?
You know what I really loved? I loved the fact that he started there early. He said he was like the 50th employee, and then they're growing. And that they're growing and they're at 700. They want to add 300 more. They do all these different clearances. And you know what that means? That means they're hiring. They're ready to talk to the right people. And if you're a good fit, I think that Brett's the kind of guy you're going to want to get in touch with.
Well, you made it to the beautiful end. Gold star for all of you. Be sure to tap that follow button, and we'll see you back next week. Till then, bye-bye.